everybody. Nick here from Trainer Plus. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about what gyms should do, especially here in Ontario with all the new shutdowns and everything. Also been seeing a lot of things on social media from different people in fitness, and just think that I want to try to make some sense of everything here for everybody. There's lots of calls to protests and petitions and demanding things from the government, and I'm just not sure that those are going to lead to the outcomes that the fitness industry really wants. So before you jump down my throat or stop the video, just hear me out, and hopefully we can get enough people working together to really, help the fitness industry right now. So for a little bit of context, I talk to a lot of gym owners and healthcare professionals as the CEO of Trainer Plus. So I'm seeing on both sides of that. As well as organizing the Ontario Coalition for the FIC and on the national board there. So I obviously hear a lot. I got a lot of information from different sources that I can try to sort of objectively look at and analyze and try to, like I said, make some sense of it for everybody. Try to be a bit of a voice of reason here with everything going on. So just keep in mind, this is my opinion. Based off everything I've seen, it does align with what the FIC's latest press release has said, and in no way am I an expert about infectious disease or epidemiology. I talk to people that are and try to rely on the information they give me as well. Just trying to synthesize everything, all the information that I get here. So my goal is to hopefully bring some clarity to gym owners, fitness professionals out there, so that we can work together and put all this energy into something that's going to be a little bit more productive, I think, and viable for the industry moving forward. So let's start with the fact that, one, like I understand, what fitness people are going through right now. Everyone's really worried about their businesses and what will happen and what the future is going to happen for themselves and for the industry. So I don't want to diminish that, in any way. I also understand that the government is in a very difficult position as they try to balance, public health versus, the economic interests of the different regions that they represent. And then there's also the healthcare people who are very worried about increased caseloads and getting overwhelmed and are by nature a lot more risk averse. So let's start there with what we know about the science and the data that are influencing a lot of these decisions that are happening right now. So what we do know is that, COVID is an airborne illness. That's been, pretty much accepted at this point in time. So it's people breathe more when they're exercising, especially when they're doing aerobics or cardiovascular activity. There's an increased breath rate, and inside an enclosed space is a high risk. So especially the smaller the space and the worse the ventilation, the higher the risk, the more people breathing in that space, etc. It's just the way the physics work on the science of that. So, and this is especially true where there's no masks, because masks do minimize that risk. So this is one of the reasons, the main reasons that gyms have been sort of deemed high risk and all kind of put under one big umbrella, no matter what kind of gym it is or what kind of activities in there. That's just the reality of what the science is saying and what, how healthcare is kind of looked at it in terms of risk assessment. So this is a big reason why here in Ontario, they shut down pretty much all indoor spaces, restaurants, casinos, museums, as well as gyms, even those where masks were worn and there wasn't necessarily evidence of transmission, at least that we know of, because we haven't, seen all that data, and we won't probably see all that data. This was done more as a preventative measure. So as the numbers are rising and there's more community spread, they just looked at all places where people were congregating inside and things could potentially spread and close things down. So this, of course, has been made a lot worse. Just the reality was going to happen at some point in time, but the reality of the outbreaks that have happened in gyms, especially with the event in Hamilton in the spin class in the spin studio being the one that got the most press and got the most awareness, not just here in Ontario but actually internationally, which has put a new spotlight on gyms, whether we like it or not. So even though there's not been a lot of transmission in larger gyms from the numbers that I've seen, and from what we've seen in the press, and the science also would say that these places are likely not as high a risk because of the lower breath rates when people are doing strength training and the larger area that these places tend to be. These and the other thing is um, so the breath can dissipate in these bigger areas. But when they look at it, they've kind of, like I said, put the whole industry into one bucket, which, whether we like it or not, that's just kind of what's happened. So when people are demanding to look at like the science and the data, this is really what public health is going to point to. This is how the disease spreads. We've seen an outbreak, a serious outbreak in a gym, and some other minor outbreaks in gyms, and that's where, like I said, everyone's being lumped together, no matter the size of the activity. So on the government side, the reality is the government is listening to the advice of public health in their decision making. They're deferring to them. So they've said that they didn't want to have to shut businesses down, but given the case rate, they felt that they had to do something to try and flatten that curve. So they've indicated that they will keep things closed for this period in those hotspots here in Ontario while they evaluate how best to move forward. And I really don't think any amount of pressure is likely going to change that. And that's sort of what people have heard from the channels they've pressed, that they're listening, but they're probably not going to go back on that decision. So to me, the better effort can be spent trying to work with the government right now to understand what is going into these decisions exactly, and how gyms can be part of the conversation so that they can figure out what they can do to get and stay reopened. Confronting them to demand being reopened right now, or trying to apply public pressure, probably doesn't really help this. We've seen the government doesn't react very well to that in general, and even from bigger industries like the restaurant industry. Nor is it causing them to share the data, even like with doctors, and with, even in some cases, with other politicians. So I know people will say, well, look at the example of dance classes. They petitioned and they were able to reopen. But really, this is a different case since, as the government said, it's cohort-based, which is what the government said today, so it's a little bit easier. The other side of it, realistically, is that most dance classes are with kids, which have been recognized as a lower risk. And for similar reasons that they've kept schools and kids' sports open, they want to keep them going. They want to keep kids, out and trying to be in somewhat of a routine, for their sake, and in some cases, I guess, for the parents' sake. So what happened was dance was kind of grouped in with fitness, and then when they realized how the big difference is, they separated them out. So I don't know if you can draw the direct parallel to think if a petition saying, gyms should reopen, they're going to seriously reconsider it. I think that that's going to be a big stretch. What the government has indicated on the other side of things is that they're willing to provide financial support for businesses that have had to sacrifice and close in the interest of public health. So this should be a particular focus, I think, for the industry, but it's going to take a unified effort to get some specifics here from both the federal and the provincial governments if we want to see some relief in terms of financial relief for the industry. So now I'm not saying that, gym owners and fitness professionals should not do anything. Just the opposite. I just think the effort needs to be kind of put in the most viable and positive potential outcomes here. So we need to work together. I think that's really important, and try to collaborate with the government to see what rules that we can get reopened under, because being open with restrictions is definitely better than being closed. Also need to make sure that the government understands that the industry is different and requires different rules for different types of businesses, realistically, which is one thing they've indicated that they are trying to do. So rather than trying to paint everybody with one brush. So that, and of course, like I just mentioned, also the need to push for financial relief at the provincial and federal level, because the economic consequences of business failures and the loss of jobs is something they do want to avoid, and the industry obviously wants to avoid that. And the potential economic consequences of people not having access to places for their mental and physical health, and the cost of our healthcare system, is also something that's implied with that, as well. So all of this requires, working together, working with the government, not trying to confront them, protest them. I don't think that's going to work for different things, and especially in fragmented groups. That's, it just makes it much more difficult for them to figure out what's happening. So in that vein, I encourage gym owners to be a part of the FIC Coalition, which is pushing for these goals, and includes a large group of gyms. So at this point in time in Ontario, it's over 400 gyms. It's well over 1,000 gyms across the board, I think, and it includes all of the big chains, plus the smaller companies as well, and one-offs and boutiques and everything. So it includes a real mix of things. that is trying to work together and have a dialogue with the government to try and be part of the solution. So at the very least, what everyone needs to do is take a similar message and push it through all the channels that they do have within the government to work with the industry and to figure out the best path forward and also push for that financial support. So just want to address also, a couple things that could work against the industry, on top of this, the sort of confrontational approach. One is the obvious need to stay very diligent for facilities that are still open in Ontario, with your guidelines, how safe you're being, all those things. For those that are closed, you got to play by the rules, unfortunately, and work within the political channels you have. Staying open for things like personal training, even though the gym shut down, it could set back the whole industry as much as maybe it wasn't specific and it is slightly different, but it's clear that that's not something we really should be doing. And it could set back the whole industry, same as if, obviously there's another outbreak, which is why I just, on the one hand, I want people to stay diligent. On the other hand, people need to just stay patient and focus their energy in the right places. So the other thing that obviously we've heard a lot of a chatter about that I wanted to address was, essential gyms as an essential service. So I want to be clear that this is coming not from me, but from healthcare professionals I've talked about. They do not view gyms as an essential service, even though they recognize that fitness is essential for people. Gyms in themselves, not as much. So the reality is that fitness can be done at home or in other places, and it does not have to be in a gym, which carries inherent risks with it, as we've kind of outlined here. So, on the other hand, people need food, they need clothes, they need those goods, and there's lower risks in these places as far as, public health is concerned, especially with people being able to wear masks in those places. So I know people also bring up the LCBO and pot shops and things like that, but the reality there is that there are addiction issues and wanting to make sure people have, access to things that are going to be more for their own leisure, and to be able to relax at this time for their own entertainment, these things like that. And those are things that they could not curate at home. You don't want people trying to make, booze in their bathtub, or, the black market filling in necessarily on the marijuana front. So, that's why those things have also been deemed essential in the grand scheme of things. So as one doctor put it to me very bluntly, fitness is essential, but people sitting in a room hyperventilating when we're going through a pandemic with an airborne illness is not. And that was the way that the healthcare is looking at it, just to be, as I said, very blunt. So pushing for this in Canada, I'm not sure it is likely to work because of healthcare's view of what is essential and the risks that gyms pose, and the nature of our approach in general in Canada being more risk averse. And obviously with things that have happened recently with outbreaks, that does not help the cause at all, or the conversation. If anything, pushing for this from the industry side could backfire because it's pretty obviously self-serving and feeds into the public perception that gyms are more, care more about their bottom lines than they do about health and wellness. So when you think that only about 17% of people have a gym membership, that leaves a large majority potentially not on the side of gyms, and as they're approaching this pandemic with an abundance of caution and fear, it's a very, it could be a very dangerous push, and there could be backlash to that. So there's no doubt that people need fitness, and they do need their gyms for mental and physical health, but this approach to push to be an essential service, in my opinion, would be a wasted energy, for the most part, and the energy could be better spent reevaluating how we approach that 83% of the market that is not gym members, and how you might need to adopt your business model and your service model to reach out to those people, especially right now where people have become more aware of the need to be active for their own health, their own immunity, all of those types of things. So I really believe the energy is going to be better spent, in other areas than pushing for the essential thing, but how we can bridge over to healthcare itself. So given all those realities, I believe the energy, the better energy is spent, working with the government to understand what rules need to be in place for different types of fitness facilities so they can reopen, lobbying for more financial relief to offset the sacrifices that the industry has made for the sake of public health and to minimize the potential economic impacts of business failures and job loss. And of course, innovating to new business models that embrace a more service-based online model that's more future-proof than the membership and sort of access and PT session-based models that realistically are just not sustainable for the foreseeable future. So for those first 2 points, the industry needs to work collectively through all of your channels with the right message to get the change in programs that are needed, for survival and to thrive moving forward. For that last point, I challenge you, gym owners, to use this time to reevaluate how you can adapt right now and have a business that is more sustainable for these uncertain times. And if you need help, you can check out other content that we've put out, and we will continue to help with this at Trainer Plus and myself personally. And I'm always available to have that conversation with people to try and help with what I've learned as I've gone as well, and what we've learned at Trainer Plus. There's so much stuff right now that's not in your control. None of us know how the case rates are going to go moving forward, what things will look like in January, whether there's going to be further restrictions or further closures. None of that right now is in our control. So I urge you to focus on what you can control, which is being smart. A smart part of the solution to work collaboratively for the best possible outcomes, which is getting reopened with the right rules as soon as possible, and getting some financial relief, and focusing on how your own business can innovate and adapt. So, agree or disagree with what I have to say. I'm just trying to bring a rational approach to what the industry is going through right now. Since, I have a little bit more objectivity not being a gym owner or operator currently, but as somebody who supports the industry and has continued to support the industry to help it improve and help it get through this. So I really believe that there's opportunity here for the industry. I just want to see everybody work together in the right way, support the right message, support the right way to push for those things that I think are very viable and that could get the best outcomes right now for the industry. So, if you don't agree, that's fine. Let me know. I'm happy to have the conversation. I hope what this video can do is just bring some reality to everybody and spark a conversation about what the industry can do together to work through this, to continue to work through this, and to get to a place where we get the best possible outcome, which is the best way of looking at it right now. So thanks. Contact me if you want. You can contact me through info@trainerpl.us, or if you want to be a part of the FIC or the coalition, reach out to me or reach out to the channels there. And if you need some content about how to innovate, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and there's lots there and lots more going on there. Thanks for now.